Hi everyone, welcome back to your practice. For today's practice, I have a couple of pillows and I do have a belt, just any ordinary belt. So if you don't have a couple of throw pillows, then you can use a couple rolled up towels or even a blanket. And then let's get started on our backs. So go ahead and relax back, find that most comfortable position for our opening pose of Shavasana. And maybe today I'm gonna just place a pillow underneath my head and make sure that the neck is in a comfortable and as neutral position as you can have it in. I'm going to bend my knees and rest my knees against each other just because my lower back feels a little tight today. So if you do have any lower back concerns, feel free to come into this position. If the lower back feels good, you can extend those legs long, separate the feet wider than the hips. So coming into our opening pose of Shavasana, it'll be the same pose that we end our practice, coming in full circle. And then let's start to deepen the breath, find your Ujjayi breath, where you're breathing in and out through the nose, if that's open and comfortable. Feeling the breath in and out of the lower belly region as if you can breathe right underneath your navel. So feel that area expand as you inhale and soften back as you exhale. And then we'll add that little sound to our breath, as if you're fogging a mirror in front of you, even if the lips are together. And it is supposed to be a pretty hot week, temperature-wise, so please adjust accordingly. Always feel free to modify or skip anything that doesn't feel good. Take as many breaks, as many water breaks as you need, and just do what feels good to the body. Let's just take another few rounds of breath here, noticing any spots that might require some modification or even skipping, and also noticing if you're holding any tension in the body. Sometimes we think we're relaxed, but we might feel some tension, especially in the shoulders, or maybe it's that space between the eyebrows, our forehead even. See if you can soften those areas, maybe even just putting a gentle smile on your face to make sure you're elongating that space between the eyebrows. And then let's try to maintain this way of breathing, this nice, smooth, deep, and even breaths of our Ujjayi breath as best as you can throughout your entire practice. If you need to breathe in a different way, feel free to do so. And then if your legs are extended long onto the mat, go ahead and bend those knees, slide the feet onto the floor. And if you do have a pillow underneath your head, if it is okay to remove the pillow and release the head down, go ahead and do so. So finding that comfortable position. And then let's start with that gentle sway of the knees right and left to a comfortable point. Starting to feel that easy twist, maybe even separate the knees nice and wide and draw them back together. So any kind of type of movement that feels good, still keeping the feet onto your mat. And then let's draw those knees into the chest, give them a hug or a squeeze. And then let's start to extend the legs up to the ceiling, point and flex the feet a few times. Get any cracks out, wiggle the toes. Circle the feet a few times in each direction, just to warm up those ankles. And then inhale, let's press those heels up, straighten the legs to a comfortable point. Feel that easy sensation of a stretch on the back of the legs. And then on your next exhale, hug those knees in, maybe curl up into a little ball. Forehead is directed towards the knees. And then inhale, let's straighten it up, release the head softly down. And then exhale, draw it in, starting to wake up through the core. One more time, inhale. And then exhale, draw it in. And then release the head and the shoulders down. One hand lightly on each knee. Let's start to circle those knees in one opposite direction. And then change the direction of your knee circles. And then hug those knees into the chest. Let's place the hands behind the head and just take a moment here. And if it doesn't feel comfortable, if you feel that elbows are lifting, you can draw your arms into a cactus shape or even out into a T shape. As long as you can fully relax those elbows down. And then let's start to find our legs in a tabletop position. So find that the shins are about parallel to the floor. And then let's separate those knees about hip bone distance apart. And then on the inhale, let's slowly lower the right leg down. Any amount. Make sure you maintain that neutral position of the spine. Feel the lower belly pull in. And then as you exhale, draw the right knee back in line with the left. Over to the other side, inhale, left leg lowers. Any amount, neutral position of the spine. And then exhale, use the strong muscles of the lower belly to draw that knee to meet the right. And let's move from side to side. Inhale is to lower. Exhale is to lift. Inhale over to the other side. Exhale is to lift. So moving side to side on your own, making sure that position of the spine doesn't change. So we don't want our lower back to be lifting off of the mat. We're really engaging through those lower belly muscles. And you'll start to feel some work in the legs and the hip flexors as well, but see if you can concentrate the effort in the lower belly. Let's do one more time on each side, making sure you have your arms in a relaxed position. So if it does cost some energy to keep your arms where they are right now, you can draw them even alongside the body if you need to. And then let's hug those or draw those knees into the chest. Remove those hands out from underneath and just give them a little squeeze. And then once again, let's draw our legs into that tabletop. Have those hands either behind the head or out into a cactus shape or a T shape or just down by the side, somewhere where you do feel just a slight opening of the chest. And then let's draw those knees together. So very gentle squeeze of the inner thighs together. And then on the inhale, let's lower those legs any amount. And then exhale, use the lower belly to lift them up. Back to neutral. Inhale is to lower. Any amount, could just be an inch or two. Exhale, engage the lower belly muscles to draw those legs back up. So moving on the rhythm of the breath. Inhale is to lower, and exhale is to draw them back to neutral. And if it's okay for your body to go a little bit lower, you can, or maybe you're just keeping the movement very small and still just focusing on those muscles along the lower belly. And then one more time. And then let's hug those knees into the chest. Give them a little squeeze. Maybe it's a little rock left and right, whatever feels good. I'm just going to move my mic over to the side for this next one. And then let's come back to tabletop position. Have those shins about parallel to the floor. And then draw the arms down by the sides or even a little bit out with the palms facing down. So if you need, you have the support of your hands as we move side to side. Let's inhale, draw those legs over to the right. Feel the work of the left side waist. And then exhale, draw it back to center, moving slow and with control. Over to the other side. Inhale, legs to the left. And then exhale, use that right side waist to draw the legs back up. So we'll move side to side in a very slow and controlled manner. Moving with the rhythm of your breath. And if you'd like a little bit more, keeping those shoulder blades firmly planted onto your mat, you can draw the legs a little bit lower towards the floor, or you can even straighten the legs a little bit more. Just depends on how energetic of a practice you'd like, and also how much space you have where you're practicing. Let's do one more time on each side, waking up the side waist, but still using the rest of the core to help keep those shoulders down. And then let's hug those knees in, give them a squeeze, and then set those feet down onto your mat. Let's come into our bridge pose pulses. So arms down by the sides, feet and knees about hip bone distance apart. Feet are about one hand length away from your bottom. All 10 toes pointing forward. And let's inhale to float those hips up, easy stretch, and then exhale, roll it down the spine. Inhale, roll up the spine, lifting those hips, and then exhale, release it down. So we're moving a few more rounds on the rhythm of the breath. If you'd like to add the arms, lifting the arms with the hips, you can, or you can even have the arms move in the opposite direction as the hips. So whatever feels good, always coordinating the movement to your breath, trying to maintain that Ujjayi breath as best as you can. Let's do 2 more rounds, waking up the back of the body, feeling the work along the back of the legs. And then 1 last round. And then release hips down. And then let's slowly start to roll onto one side and make your way up to a comfortable seated position on your mat. So maybe that means sliding a pillow or a blanket or a towel underneath your hips if you need it to get that feeling of lengthening through the spine, feeling of sitting up tall. Remember to engage those core muscles to support the spine. And then let's draw the palms of the hands together at our heart center. And maybe take a moment, maybe close the eyes if that feels comfortable. Find your Ujjayi breath. Feel the shoulders over the hips. Feel the outer knees relax down if the legs are crossed. And if you'd like to set an intention or a dedication for your practice, go ahead and do so at this time, knowing that you can always come back to your intention or dedication throughout your practice. Let's open the eyes if they're closed. Namaste. Good to practice with you today. Inhale, let's circle those arms out and up. And then exhale, hands to the heart. So just a couple more times, making it feel good to the body. Getting some opening for the chest and the shoulders, and then hands to the heart. Let's come into a few rounds of our spinal circle. So with the hands just lightly on the thighs, start to circle the upper half of the body over the lower. If it feels good to get a tiny little bit of a twist through the spine, you can, just kind of seeing how our body's doing, noticing the different areas. Let's change the direction of the circle. So if you want to add just extra little movements to help you kind of investigate, explore your body, you can. All right. And then let's return to sitting up nice and tall. Draw the shoulders up and then down. Do a couple more of those shoulder circles, up and then down. One more time, up and then down, and keep pulling those shoulders down. So feel the shoulders right over the hips, still engaging through the belly. And let's just get a very gentle turn of the head over in one direction. Nice, easy stretch. And then let's slowly turn the head through center over to the other side. Get a stretch for your neck to a comfortable point, a point that feels good. Let's draw the head back to center, change the crossing of the legs if they are crossed. And then let's draw those arms forward and up. So palms facing each other, shoulders draw down. So you can do our seated cow-cat if you need a little bit more support with the hands onto the thighs. If you want a little bit more, we'll inhale, lift those arms just to a comfortable height. Draw the shoulders down, small arch in the back. So use the core muscles to support the spine. And then as you exhale, we'll round through the spine and just draw those arms forward and down. So maybe you're resting your wrists onto your knees, or the fingers are reaching the mat. Inhale, sit it up tall. Find that little arch in our spine, seated cow pose with the arms lift, and then exhale, engage through the belly, slowly round through the spine. So the strength of the belly, the front part of the core, is supporting the spine. Let's do 2 more rounds. Inhale. And remember, if your breath doesn't match mine, that's fine as long as you continuously breathe, trying to find your Ujjayi breath and find your movement to match the rhythm of the breath. One last round. Inhale is to slowly lift, and then exhale is to round. And then let's sit up tall, draw the hands onto the thighs. Let's draw those shoulders up and then roll them back and down. Let's start to extend those arms forward. Keep pulling the shoulders down, so energize out through the fingers. Take an inhale, and then as you exhale, easy twist. So try to keep the center of the chest right between the hands so the arms aren't drifting faster than the chest is turning. And then inhale, come back to center. Exhale, let's twist over to the other side, feeling the work of the side waist. Inhale, back to center, sitting up tall. And exhale, gentle twist. Inhale, back to center. And then exhale over to the other side. You should feel some warmth building up in your shoulders. One more time on each side, just a seated twist. Notice if the knees are starting to come up. See if you can relax them down. Keep moving the shoulders down. So lots of openness for the chest, for the collarbones. Doesn't have to be too much of a twist. And then let's come back to center. Release those arms down. You can draw those fingertips back behind you. And let's open up through the chest. Little counter stretch. And breathe here, taking maybe another round or two of breath here. And then let's slowly come back to center. And just place the hands onto the thighs for a moment. Find your Ujjayi breath. Maybe close the eyes if that feels good. And then let's open the eyes. Circle those arms out and up. And then as you exhale, draw the shoulders down. So you can create the hands a little bit wider than the shoulders, coming into a side bend. Let's take an inhale. And then as you exit, just a mini side bend over to one side. So it doesn't have to be too much. And like I said before, if you'd prefer, you can keep those arms down. Inhale back to center and exhale over to the other side. So a lot of core work, a lot of muscles strengthening work for the upper back. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale over to the other side. And then inhale, come back to center, exhale over to the other side. So one more time on each side. Base of the body is really sturdy and stable. So we're not lifting the bottom off of the mat, really just focusing on kind of from the navel and up. And then let's come back to center. Relax those arms down. You could shake it out or wiggle it out. And then let's interlace the fingers and start to turn those hands, turn those wrists. Get a nice easy stretch for those hands and wrists for when we come onto our hands and knees. Change the direction of your circles. Maybe crack a knuckle or two if that feels good. Maybe extend those palms forward, but move the shoulders down. And then release those hands, shake them out. And then let's come onto our hands and knees, coming into our tabletop pose. And remember, if the wrists feel sensitive, you can come onto your forearms. If you can stack something underneath your forearms, just to give you a little bit more height, that can help with the comfort for the spine. Otherwise, let's have the hands underneath the shoulders. We'll have the knees underneath the hips. And then when you're ready, let's come into our balancing cat. Right leg straight back or toes down. Left arm reaches forward. So this week is supposed to be pretty warm, so this week's practice will focus more on longer holds as opposed to a lot of flow or a lot of movement, just to make sure we conserve our energy and don't get overheated. Although keeping these poses can be a lot of work. Let's slowly release down. So make sure you manage your energy accordingly and make any adjustments as you see fit. Left leg straight back, maybe the toes down. Right arm reaches forward if you'd like, engaging through those core muscles. Shoulders draw back. So find the balancing cat that works for you, where you feel that there's work in the body, but we're not overheating. And breathe here. Try to keep those hips even. Left toes point down if the left foot is lifted. And one more round. And then slowly release it down. Let's sit it back into child's pose. So widen those knees, big toes draw towards each other, and then release those hips down. And then having the forehead resting on something, maybe it's a pillow or your own hands. So remember, you can come into child's pose at any time that feels good to your body. Let's take one more round of breath here. And then let's slowly look forward and let's slither forward onto our bellies. So very carefully and safely release onto your belly. And then when you get there, let's release the chest down. Draw the hands alongside the ribs, elbows in, coming into Cobra pose. Really flatten the tops of the feet into your mat. So feet are about hip bone distance apart. We can start with the forehead close to the mat or even resting on the mat. And then engage through the lower belly muscles. So feel the squeeze of the muscles that support the spine, they're core muscles. And then on the inhale, let's float the chest any amount off of the mat. We're going to hold our Cobra here. So really focus on those muscles along the mid and upper back doing the work. We are kind of pushing into our hands a little bit, but we're not relying only on our arms to lift the chest. So we really want to work on those muscles of the upper back. We're engaging through the thighs, so maybe the knees are lifting off of the mat and still pressing firmly into the tops of the feet. Take another breath in here, and then exhale, release down. Rest the forehead on the mat or on a pillow. And then let's go one more time. Elbows in, shoulders draw back. Engage through those thighs. Press the tops of the feet firmly into the mat. And as you're ready, initiate from the muscles of the upper back, maybe the middle back too. And we are still engaging through the core, so we're not overarching through the lower spine. And then it's as if you're trying to drag your heart forward and your hands are moving back towards your feet. So lots of energy, lots of work in the muscles of the upper back, even though we're not moving that much. Last rounded breath here. And then go ahead and release down. You can slide the hands underneath your forehead, bend those knees, and just a gentle sway of those lower legs, right and left. And then we'll keep our forehead on our hands and just relax those legs back long and separate those feet about hip bone distance apart. And start to engage through those thighs once again, pressing the tops of the feet into the mat. And then from here, we'll slowly float the right leg just a couple inches off of the mat. So we're not looking for height, more of length. So we're lifting that right leg a little bit off of the mat, and then as if somebody's pulling us by our right toes. So feel that length there. And then release down, and you might notice that your right leg feels a little bit longer than the left. So let's do the other side. Let's engage through the left leg, press the top of the left foot into the mat, and still engaging through the right one as well. And then let's slowly float that left leg any amount, maybe just keep it pretty low, maybe just a couple inches off of the mat. And then as if somebody is pulling our left toes back behind us. So we're lengthening it out and then setting that left leg down. So now both legs are nice and even. And then from here, let's lift the forehead, draw the hands alongside the ribs, elbows in. We'll slowly peel ourselves off of the mat using the core muscles. And then let's sit it back into child's pose. And child's pose, the position of the arms can be anywhere, whatever is most comfortable for you. Maybe you're stacking your forehead on your hands, or maybe arms are just alongside the body. And then as you're ready, let's slowly come on up. Let's come back into our tabletop position. And let's venture into our puppy pose. So from our tabletop position, hips stay right where they are over the knees. Let's walk the hands forward, melt the shoulders down. And maybe you're melting the forehead and the elbows down for a relaxed puppy. Or if you want a little bit more, maybe you're keeping the elbows and forehead lifted and drawing those shoulders back really strong in the hands. So find what works best for you, whether you'd like a more relaxing practice or a more active, energetic practice. And then let's all walk it back to child's pose, taking a moment here. And then let's rise back up one more time in our inversion of choice. And remember, child's pose is a choice. You can stay in child's pose if you like. So either puppy pose or the pose that we just did. If you are ready to come into downward facing dog, you'll walk your hands a few inches forward of your shoulders. Curl those toes under, lift those hips. And then from here, you can pedal it through. Find a little movement if that feels good, or find stillness, have a soft bend in those knees, feel that sensation of pressing the weight back into the heels, but the shoulders are moving towards, or away from the ears, towards the hips, and then the armpits are kind of rolling down to point more towards your feet and not out to the side. Taking just another rounded breath here. And then as you're ready, let's slowly start to walk forward, bending those knees, rising onto your fingertips, or whatever manner is safe for you to walk to the top of the mat. And then let's bend those knees and slowly roll it on up. Adjusting the clothes if you need to. And then when you get to the top, let's circle those arms out and up, take an inhale, and then exhale, hands to the heart. And then let's have a bend in those knees and separate those feet so a little bit wider than the hips so you feel really sturdy and balanced. And then on the next inhale, if the shoulders feel good, you can draw those arms forward and up, maybe that little arch in the spine. And then as you exhale, just like we did when we were seated, we'll engage through the belly. So we'll round through the spine a little bit as you draw those arms down, maybe a little bit back behind you. Make sure you're engaging through the core to support that lower spine. Inhale. Lift those arms up, maybe straighten the legs, maybe a little arch in the spine if that feels good, or neutral in the spine, and then exhale, really strong in the front part of the core as you round through the spine. Arms draw any amount back behind you. And then one more time, inhale is to lift. And then exhale is to round. And then let's return to that neutral mountain pose. You can step the feet a little bit closer together or hip bone distance apart, whatever is more comfortable. Let's come into a half sun salute. Inhale, arms out and up this time. And then exhale, soft bend in those knees. Dive it down. Find your forward fold. Remember, you can stay higher if you need to. Inhale, glide the hands up the shins or the thighs. Press into the hands and use that to extend the spine. Strong flat back. And then exhale, release it back down. And then soft bend in the knees. Let's rise all the way up to standing. You can either rise with a flat back or bend those knees even more and roll up the spine, as long as you're engaging through the core and using the leg muscles to do the work. Let's do another half sun salute. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, dive it down, your forward fold. Inhale, press into the hands, into the legs to extend the arms, extend the spine. Exhale, release back down. And then let's rise all the way up. Draw those arms out and up, and then exhale, hands to the heart. Let's separate those feet once again, a little bit wider than the hips so you feel a really stable base of support. And let's draw those arms forward and pull the shoulders down. So neutral position in the spine. Take an inhale. And then as you exhale, that easy twist. Make sure the lower body does not twist. So hips stay pointing forward, knees stay pointing forward. And then let's inhale, come to center. Exhale over to the other side. Feel the work of the side waist. Inhale back to center. Exhale, little twist. Making sure the arms travel at the same speed as the chest. Inhale back to center. Exhale, twist. And then one more time on each side. So you can imagine that you're just carrying something in front of you. Lots of energy through those arms. And then let's come back to center. Relax those arms down. Circle those arms out and up. Nice stretch. And then exhale, hands to the heart. I'm going to walk to the top of my mat so we can come into a few standing poses. So let's keep the right foot where it is and step your left foot back. So coming into our warrior one base. Left toes angled to the outside of the top left corner of the mat. Let's bend the right knee, stack, track, and freeze it there. And then when you're ready, we'll upright the spine, engage through the belly, the back, even the sideways, and let's lift the arms and pull the shoulders down. Remember, if you do have any shoulder concerns, feel free to have the arms a little bit forward or even straight forward if that feels better on the shoulders. And then let's come into that little side bend. So lower half of the body stays as is. Take an inhale. And then as you exhale, we'll side bend it a little bit over to the right. And taking a couple rounds of breath here. So feel the ankles kind of wiggling, moving around a little bit to make sure we maintain our upright position. Make sure you're bending the right knee to stack and track. Feel the work of the legs. And then let's come back to center. Take an inhale. And then exhale, little side bend over to the left without twisting through the spine. Still engaging through the core so we're not overarching the lower spine. Melt the tailbone down. Breathing here. You should feel just some gentle warmth in the shoulders, building strength in the upper back. Let's come back to center. Take an inhale, and then as you exhale, release those arms back down. And then from here, either hands onto the hips, start to draw the thumbs towards each other, or you can interlace the fingers, or if you do have your belt handy, you can draw the belt back behind you, turn the palms to face forward. Hands can start shoulder width distance apart, and then let's open up through the chest without overarching through the lower back. And then if you do have your hands behind you, you can lift the arms away from your body to a comfortable point, so stretching out through the chest. Take an inhale here, and then as you exhale, hinge forward at the hips, just up to 45 degrees or less. Or you can stay upright the whole time. We're opening up through the chest, working the muscles of the back of the body as well, coming into kind of a version of humble warrior. One last round of breath here, working those legs, and then we'll upright the spine. If you have the strap, release it from back behind you, and we'll step it forward. Place the strap on my chair. Let's move over to the other side. So right foot steps back. Find your warrior one base. Make sure those right toes are angled pretty steeply forward to get those hips to point forward. And then start to bend the left knee, stack it and track it. Heels of the feet are about hip bone distance apart for balance. Energize through those legs, and when you're ready, let's add those arms and pull the shoulders down. And we'll take a moment here. Let's take another inhale, and then as you exhale, we'll first gentle side bend to the left. Any amount that feels good. Feel the opening of the right sideways, but we're not twisting through the spine. We're just breathing here. Imagine that you can breathe into the right sideways. Think of lengthening, but keep really strong and steady in the lower half of the body. Let's inhale to come up, and then exhale, we'll side bend a little bit over to the right. Make sure you're still bending the left knee to stack and track, working those legs, finding your balance. And then let's draw ourselves back to center. Take an inhale. Then as you exhale, release those arms forward and down. And then whatever arm position feels good, maybe hands on the hips with the elbows starting to point back behind you. Maybe you're interlacing the fingers if that's comfortable, or maybe you're using a strap behind you with the palms facing forward. We'll take an inhale here, lifting those arms to a comfortable stretch. And then as you exhale, maybe hinging forward at the hips. So a lot of maybes. So there's a lot of options here that you can take or you can leave, just depending on what feels good for your body. Breathing here, strong through the core. So strong flat back, long spine, only just doing what feels good, doing the best that you can for today. And then let's slowly upright, release from back behind you, and we'll step it forward. And then let's come into tree pose. So we started working and warming up those ankles. So let's continue to work on our balance. With your right leg being the standing leg, I'll mirror you. Let's lift your left heel, open it up, and then place the left heel on the inside of the ankle. So arm position is up to you. We will be playing with the arm position a little bit. So it's up to you whether you'd like to add that challenge of the arms or just stay where you are. If you'd like to add the challenge of the arms, let's draw those arms forward and up and pull the shoulders down. So you'll notice I'm keeping my toes down onto the mat for a little balance, because if you'd like to add even more challenge, maybe it's a little side bend over to one direction, and then through center over to the other side, and only going to a point that you feel a little bit of challenge, but you don't feel like you're going to fall over, but you can still step out of the challenge if you need to, out of our tree pose. Let's come back to center, and then slowly release arms forward and down, shake it out. And then let's stand tall. Let's move over to the other side, lifting the left heel, opening it out, placing the heel on the inside of the ankle, but still standing up tall. So strong in the legs, strong in the core. And then maybe you're staying here. Maybe you're adding the arms up, pulling the shoulders down. And then we'll add maybe a tiny little side bend over to one direction, and then through center and over to the other side. And then let's come back to center, finding your Ujjayi breath, maintaining it. Release those arms forward and down and shake it out. Let's come into a supported forward fold to stretch out the back of the body. I'll give you the side view. Separate those feet maybe a little bit wider than your hip bones. Inhale, arms forward or out and up. And then exhale, let's bend those knees, dive it into your supported forward fold. So forearms onto the thighs, release the head. If it is okay on your body to go lower, you can slide the hands down the legs if that feels good. Taking just another moment here. So the arms are supporting the upper half of the body, so not too much pressure on the lower spine, and see if you can fully release the back. And then let's bend those knees. Let's walk our hands up our legs as we engage through the core so we can come up safely with no strain on the lower back or the lower spine. And then when you get there, let's draw those arms out or forward and up. And then exhale, hands to the heart. I'm going to stroll to the top of my mat again. Let's keep our right foot where it is. Let's step the left foot back and come into high crescent pose. Now, warrior one is also an option. If you find that the balance is particularly challenged for today, you can step into warrior one. If you want to add a little bit more to your practice, high crescent base, where all 10 toes pointing as forward as you can. Maybe your left heel is lifted or your back foot is lifted off of the mat, but we're still bending that front knee, stack, track, and freeze it there. And then let's just draw the arms forward and pull the shoulders down. So strong in the core, lengthen through the spine, tailbone melts down. Bottom half of the body stays still and stable as we take an inhale. And then as you exhale, let's do that little twist a little bit to the right. So it's just a few degrees. Working those ankles. Nice. And then let's come back to center. And then over to the other side. Remember, the arms and the chest move at the same speed so that the arms aren't way over to the left than the chest. Easy twist. Let's come back to center and then release those arms down. Let's do a little bit more balance work as we shift the weight into the right leg. Stand tall in the right leg. Maybe your left toes stay on the mat, or maybe you start to lift them up. Taking an extra round or two of breath here. Taking our time and our transitions to use the transitions as a nice opportunity to work on our balance. And then let's step it to the top of the mat. Let's move over to the other side. Your right foot steps back. Either warrior one with that right heel down, or high crescent pose with all 10 toes pointing as forward as you can. Bend the left knee, stack, track it, and freeze it. Maybe the right heel is lifted a little bit off of the mat, or maybe you'll draw that foot a little bit closer to you so you can settle the right heel down onto the mat for a little bit more balance. And then let's draw those arms forward. Make sure you're not locking out that back knee. Its back leg is really strong. Let's come into that twist. So we'll take an inhale. And then as you exhale, we'll twist to the left. So to the direction of the leg that is forward. And then slowly make your way back to center. And then a little bit over to the right. Bottom half of the body stays still and stable. I gotta watch out for my curtains here. And then let's slowly come back to center. And then release those arms down. Start to transfer the weight into that front leg. You can even hop that right foot forward, the back foot forward. And then let's play with the balance here. So standing up tall, maybe your back toes stay on the mat, or maybe they're lifted. But whatever you're doing, you're finding your Ujjayi breath as best as you can. We've got lots of wiggles on this side. And then let's slowly place the foot down, and you can shake out those ankles. Nice work, everyone. So I'm going to bring my chair onto my mat. So make sure your chair is sturdy and stable so it doesn't slide when you put any weight on it. All right, and then let's go ahead and stand right in front of the chair. Let's find mountain pose. Take a moment here. And then draw those arms forward and up or out and up as you inhale. As you exhale, soft bend in the knees, melt it forward, coming into a forward fold. And then when you get your hands either onto the seat of the chair, if you need a little bit more height on the top of the chair, you can even turn the chair around if you need to for comfort. Let's start to keep that right foot where it is and slide or step the left foot back. Coming into a warrior two base, so heel to arch alignment, left toe slightly forward to the left heel, and then pull those hips underneath you as you start to bend the right knee, stack, track it, and freeze it. We're coming into side angle pose. So we'll keep our right hand onto the chair. Remember, you can place it on the top of the chair if you need, or you can even rise up onto your fingertips, whatever feels good. Pull those hips underneath you so the right thigh is about parallel to that front thigh is parallel to the long edge of the mat. And then start to turn the chest over to the left. Maybe that arm is out to the side, or maybe it's up to the ceiling, but pull the shoulders down and breathe here. So feel the work of the leg muscles to keep that right thigh parallel to the long edge of the mat. Breathing here, starting to feel some opening in that front thigh. Take another moment here. And then let's release back down. So both hands onto the chair, square the hips and the shoulders to point towards the chair. And then you can walk your hands to the top of the chair and start to stand up tall into that right leg. Strong flat back. Maybe the left toes are down. Maybe the left toes are lifted. Maybe you're playing with the balance, taking a hand or two off of the chair. Lots of work for that standing leg. And then slowly release that foot back to the top of the mat. Inhale, arms out or forward and up. And then exhale, soft bend in the knees. Come down into your hands or onto the chair. And we'll keep the left foot where it is and move over to the other side. So start to step your right foot back. I'll give you the back view of the pose. So adjust the feet, heel to arch alignment, right toes slightly in of the right heel. And then as you bend the left knee and stack and track it towards the center of the toes, pull those hips underneath you. So try to get the left thigh parallel to the long edge of the mat. Move the shoulders down. And then with the left hand down onto the chair or to the top of the chair, we'll start to turn the chest to the right and find your side angle pose. Maybe the right arm is just reaching back behind you, parallel to the floor, or maybe you're reaching that right arm up, pulling the shoulders down. Keep pulling the hips underneath you so you get a stretch through that inner front thigh, working that front leg, breathing here. And then let's slowly take that right hand, that top hand down, turn the shoulders and the chest and the hips to point towards the chair. And then let's take our hands to the top of the chair if they're not already there, and then stand up tall. Maybe those back toes are down, maybe those back toes are lifted. And then let's just play with the balance. You have the chair for support if you need it. So maybe you're taking your hands, floating them off the chair. Think of a strong core, strong flat back. Nice. And then let's slowly upright. Let's turn around and have a seat in our chair. Coming now into a supported seated forward fold. Let's separate those knees wider than the hips and then either come down onto your forearms, or if it's okay for your body to go lower, you can fold forward. Maybe you're even releasing the head if that feels good. Breathing here. And then as you're ready, let's walk the hands onto the thighs, elbows in, pull the belly in. So use the core to do all the work, and the hands and the arms. So you can slowly roll it on up without any pressure on the lower back. Let's continue with our standing poses. So let's come out of the chair, go back to face the chair. And then let's come into chair pose. So either feet together or feet hip bone distance apart, your choice. And let's start to bend those knees, send those hips back, hinge forward at the hips, arms forward or forward and up. Squeeze those glutes, the legs, melt the tailbone down so we're lengthening through the lower spine and we're not arching through that area. Take an inhale. And then exhale, hands down. And then let's start to straighten those legs any amount. If you do have your feet together, let's separate those feet about hip bone distance apart. It's a little roundness through the spine. And then let's start to pedal through the legs, bending one knee and straightening the opposite leg. And if it feels good to kind of really get a stretch to the outer hip of the leg that is straight, you can. Just kind of feeling things out, opening things up a little bit more. And then let's come back to center. And now let's all walk our feet back together. Right foot stays where it is, left foot steps back. Kind of a warrior two base, but we're just going to come right into triangle pose. So both legs relatively straight. Pull those hips underneath you. And maybe this time you're placing your hand onto the top of the chair. You can even scooch it a little bit closer towards you. Or maybe you're placing your hand on the seat of the chair, rising onto your fingertips. So whatever feels comfortable as you pull the hips in and open the chest to the left. And let's reach our left arm either straight back behind you or up. So coming into triangle pose with both legs relatively straight and engaging through those thighs. Breathing here, moving the shoulders down. Lots of work for this left sideways. So we're not completely relaxed in this pose. That top sideways is working hard to keep that chest lifted and that length through the spine. One last breath here. Wherever you look is up to you. And then let's take our gaze to the top of the chair and let's take our top hand to our hip, start to bend the right knee. And we'll start to take our hand onto the top of the chair if it's not already there. And let's stand tall. So a little bit different version since our balance, since our chest is turned to the left. And maybe stay here. Maybe lift the left foot off of the floor. Work the balance here. Maybe the hand as well, up and down or hovering, whatever feels good. Working that standing leg. Breathing here. It's our quarter moon pose. And then with a soft bend in the right knee, let's slowly turn forward and set the left foot down. Inhale, arms out or forward and up. Exhale, soft bend in the knees, hinge it forward. And then let's separate those feet once again, about hip bone distance, and just find a little pedal through the legs. Open things up, get an easy stretch for the lower back. And then come back to center, walk those feet together. I'm going to give you the back view. So let's start to step that right foot a little bit back behind us. Warrior 2 feet, but we are coming into triangle pose. So the distance between the feet doesn't have to be the same. It can be shorter than in our standard warrior 2. And then we'll start to pull the hips underneath us, coming up a little bit higher and stretch that top arm either back behind you or up. Pull those hips underneath you. Work this top sideways. So you're really engaging through that top sideways. Remember, if you need to come a little bit higher, you can place your hand on the top of the chair. Feel free to move the chair wherever you need to. Breathing here. Always think about drawing those hips back and up, as if you're trying to get your top hip to the top shoulder and the top shoulder down to the top hip. Finding our triangle pose. And then let's take the gaze to the top of the chair. Start to bend the left knee or that front knee, top hand down onto the hip. Let's take this bottom hand to the top of the chair and then stand tall in that front leg, still turning the chest to the side and maybe playing with the balance here. Or maybe not, maybe you're keeping those toes down. Finding your quarter moon pose. And then let's slowly start to turn the chest forward. Let's inhale, arms forward and up. And then exhale, hands to the heart. And I will come to face you one more time to come into our tree pose. So let's draw those arms down by the sides to start. Finding our mountain pose. I'll mirror you. So your right leg will be the standing leg. Let's lift the left heel, open it out, place the left heel on the inside of the ankle, hips point forward, and maybe this time you're challenging yourself a little bit more, or you're keeping the toes down. So find where you get a little bit of challenge, you feel those wiggles, but not so much that you're going to fall over. Feel free to step out of tree pose at any time. Let's take another breath or two here of our Ujjayi breath. Ooh. And then let's release it down. Over to the other side, open it out. Find where you feel balanced. Steadying your gaze on a single point. If your eyes are kind of darting everywhere, that can affect your balance. And then think about that softness in the face, maybe even a little smile on the face. And then as you're ready, release it on down. Nice work. Inhale, arms out and up. And then exhale, hands to the heart. Let's turn back to face the chair again. We'll do one more standing pose, more of a stretch for the backs of the legs. So we'll start by standing right in front of the chair. We'll take our left foot back. So heels of the feet about hip bone distance apart. The left foot can just go back a foot or a foot and a half. Both legs relatively straight, left toes pointing to the top left corner of the mat. So engage to those thighs, take an inhale. And then as you exhale, coming into pyramid pose. So trying to maintain a strong flat back. So maybe you need to, like me, draw the chair a little bit closer so I can place my hands to the top of the chair. So I want to maintain a strong flat back. When we start to round, then we lose that concentrated stretch in the legs. So we are focusing on the back of that front leg. Mild sensation only. And as you're in the pose, maybe you are able to go deeper in the pose, or maybe your body is telling you to come out. So listen to your body and do what feels good. One last round of breath here. If it feels good, you can even lift those right toes. As long as you're not locking out the knee, you'll get an extra stretch for behind the right lower leg. If you do have your front toes lifted, go ahead and release. Soft bend in both knees. Walk the hands to the top of the chair so you can rise with a flat back. And let's move over to the other side. Separating those heels about hip bone distance. Torso squares to the chair. Take an inhale. Then as you exhale, hinge forward at the hips. Strong flat back, neutral position in the spine, and find your mild sensation of a stretch on this side, coming into our pyramid pose. Breathing here. And then after a few rounds of breath, if you feel you can comfortably and safely go deeper in the pose, you can, or stay high if you need to. If you like that little bit more, start to lift the front toes. Maybe a little wiggle or crack of those toes. And then let's slowly release those front toes down. If they were lifted, soft bend in those knees. Walk the hands to the top of the chair, and let's slowly press our way up. Step to the top, separate those feet wider than the hips. Come into a supported forward fold, soft bend in the knees, maybe forearms onto the top of the chair, maybe head rests. If you want to work on your Yogi Squat, start to bend those knees, send those hips down. So you do have the chair for more support, so maybe it's more of a high squat. If you're still working on safely releasing your hips down, make sure all the joints are happy. So if you do feel any discomfort, come out of the pose, just come into a supported forward fold. And then if you're able to safely release your bottom down, make sure the heels are also down. You can come into this lower squat. So wherever feels good for your body. Take another few rounds of breath here. And then as you're ready, in the most safe way that you can come onto your bottom, go ahead and make your way onto your bottom. And when you get there, let's find ourselves in our butterfly pose. But before you get there, just make sure your props are handy so that we can use them if you need them during our grounding poses. And then now let's come into our butterfly pose. Draw the soles of the feet together. Maybe slide pillows or anything underneath the outer legs for support, and come forward, and maybe you're just placing the head. Let me put a pillow here. Maybe you're placing the head on the seat of the chair and using that as some support in this pose. And we'll take a few rounds of breath here. And let's slowly begin to lift the head. All right, we're coming into our half or single pigeon pose. So from our butterfly pose, and remember, if there is a different pose that feels better on the joints, feel free to take it. And if you do feel that the joints aren't going to like this pose, then feel free to take a thread the needle or another pose. So to come into our single or half pigeon pose, we'll draw the weight over to the right. Place your hands off to the right so you can heel toe or assist yourself to draw that left knee, maybe right next to the right heel. And let's center our right lower leg, our front lower leg onto the mat. Flex through both feet the whole time. So maybe you're starting here, as long as it's comfortable on the joints, and maybe you're leaning forward. If it is okay to go deeper into the pose, excuse my dog, you can draw that leg a little bit further back behind, but find what works best for you. And then you can use the chair for support. Maybe you have a pillow there, or maybe you can release the chair, slide it forward, and come onto your form. So find what works best for you, where you get that mild sensation of a stretch on that outer hip. And if you have another pillow, you can use it to make yourself a little bit more comfortable. So whatever works best. And we'll take a few rounds of breath here. As long as you feel that your front foot is flexed and that your right buttock is fully supported on your mat. And slowly, let's make our way back up. Walk the weight over to the right, and then let's draw that back leg back in. And let's come through our butterfly pose. I'm just taking a moment here just to feel how the sides, how the legs feel, if one feels maybe a little bit longer than the other. Let's move over to the other side. Draw the weight over to your left. Very carefully draw that right knee. We'll start with the right knee kind of next to the left foot. Flex both feet and then center your left lower leg onto the mat. Maybe you're staying here, or if it's okay on your body to go deeper, very slowly, you can either start to draw that back leg a little bit further back to a comfortable point. Maybe for this one, I'm just going to relax forward onto the chair and find that mild sensation of a stretch coming into our half pigeon pose. And if the joints don't like this, like I said before, you can come into our classic thread the needle pose on our back, crossing the ankle over the thigh and keeping that foot flexed. Or you can just hug those knees into the chest when you're on your back. So whatever feels good. You might find that you are able to deepen the pose after a few rounds of your Ujjayi breath, or you might need to back out of the pose. So just find what works best for your body, where you feel comfortable and you can relax into the stretch. And we'll just take just a few more deep rounds of breath here. And then as you're ready, slowly upright, lean the weight over to the left so you can very gently draw that right knee forward. And then let's sit tall, where we have both feet flat onto the mat. And let's draw the inner thighs towards each other. And you can have the feet as close or as far away from you as feels good. It's coming to an easy twist. So let's take an inhale, and then as you exhale, let's turn the shoulders and the chest over to the left. And then that front arm is there for support. You can draw the back arm, the fingers back behind you. Maybe look a little bit back behind you. Do something very gentle for the spine. Breathing here. And then as you're ready, let's slowly untwist. Take an inhale, exhale over to the other side. Thinking of or feeling that the rib cage is twisting also, but the knees are just staying still and stable. Looking to a comfortable point. And then let's slowly unwind. Let's draw both fingertips back behind us. Keep drawing those inner thighs together. And then let's start to open up through the chest. So you can say hi on your fingertips. If it feels okay to go onto your hands, you can. Trying to lift, get one more stretch for the chest. Draw the shoulders back. Position of the head is wherever is comfortable for you. And then as you're ready, walk your hands back towards you. And let's come into our final pose of Shavasana. So you do have your chair here. If you'd like to go legs up the chair with the lower legs onto the chair, more traditional Shavasana, you can separate the feet to the outside of the chair. So find what is a comfortable pose for you and safely get yourself there. For this one, I'm going to have my legs on the chair. I'm also going to use a pillow underneath my head. I'm going to get myself really comfortable here. And then let's draw the arms alongside the body, turn the palms to face up. I will be playing the sound of wind chimes during your Shavasana. So if you do find that your mind is wandering in many different directions, you can settle your mind on the sound of the chimes. Let's take a deep breath in together. Exhale out the mouth. Relax the body and enjoy these next few minutes of Shavasana. And slowly put some movement into your fingers and toes. Begin to deepen your breath. And on the next inhale, you can stretch the arms up to the ceiling or over your head. And then just being very mindful of the chair as you exhale, you can return the arms back down by the sides and slowly bend those knees. You can draw them into the chest if that feels good. Maybe a little stretch for the lower back. And just being careful of the chair once again. Let's roll onto one side. And then as you're ready, slowly press your way up to a comfortable seat, head coming up last. Let's draw the palms of the hands together. Thank you so much for allowing me to guide you through your practice today. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Hope you are continuing to be healthy and be safe, and we will see you next time.